I think one thing I really want to see from Alabama is utilizing those weapons, kind of similar to what Jalen was talking about, utilizing the run game. I think as a whole, just utilizing weapons not only in your backfield but also in your wide receiver room, because we did see a lot of guys transfer out of Alabama, guys like Caleb Odom, who's a 6'6" stud coming out of Carlton, Georgia, right? You had Kendrick Law, who's one of the fastest guys on the team, and we didn't even hardly see any of them
True.
besides the first week of the season against Western Kentucky. And then also a guy in Kobe Prentice that you guys are familiar with because he's from y'all's hometown.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
didn't see much of Kobe Prentice either. So it's not just the backfield, but it's also just everybody that you have as a whole. Bama, there's no questions about it. Alabama had the talent to be a playoff team this year. It's just the game plan, the execution, and how you attack and how you utilize those weapons that are that surround you in that offense. I feel like the approach that Alabama took this past year, I feel like a lot of times they got one dimensional and became a bit too predictable. So that's one thing I'm really looking for going into year two. And that's one thing that a lot of these teams that we see in the playoff this year are doing a great job of. Ohio State, they've got weapons on the outside. They're going to utilize them. You know for a fact Jeremiah Smith is getting the ball in his hand. You know for a fact, those other wideouts that they have in that wide receiver room are going to find way. They're going to find ways to get them open out in the middle of the field. Bama, it seemed like there were some games Bama would try to do that, but they wouldn't execute. And the scheming wasn't where it needed to be in order to put those guys in a position to be successful. So that's one thing going into year two that I feel like, looking at this playoff, one thing that a lot of these teams do a great job of is getting the ball in their playmakers' hands. Can we do that in year two? Can Kalen DeBoer, can Nick Sheridan, or whoever ends up being the offensive coordinator in year two, can they find ways to get the ball in the playmakers' hands? That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see going into year two.
Yeah, they're gonna have to find a wide receiver too that they trust. I mean, I don't think outside of Ryan Williams they had anyone that they truly trusted.
What? You
I
don't think
don't.
they can trust Bernard?
I think Bernard. I
No,
think.
no. Listen, hold on. Let me
Oh
finish my
my.
point.
Oh
Hold on.
man.
Let me hold on before you get going.
Mm-hmm.
They did not utilize Bernard, and it showed. So obviously, they didn't trust in him to down. I'm talking about consistently. When you watched Alabama, you knew who the ball was going to go to. It was going to be Ryan Williams, and everybody else kind of disappeared. As Eli even stated, it was guys that he just named that weren't getting utilized. So why was I mean the only other reason I can see is that they didn't trust him.
When you say they, are you talking about? You don't
I'm
think that
talking
they
about the
schemed?
coordinator. I'm talking about the offensive
See,
coordinator. Millwall. I'm talking about. They didn't throw to him. When you watch Alabama games, who was getting most of the targets?
of course, it was Ryan Williams, but I think Ryan Williams had such an electric start to the season that he felt like
Let me
the
ask you this:
entire.
and when you watch that Tennessee game, who were they just
It was
trying to throw to?
it was Ryan Williams,
And
but
who else?
it was just Ryan Williams to be honest.
Exactly. So Tennessee. Oh, my point. So guess what? For Tennessee, it was easy to defend because the running game isn't really getting utilized, as I stated earlier.
Okay.
And if you throw in the one guy, we know who you're gonna throw it to. And oh yeah, that's Tennessee's best part of that team is the secondary and the defensive line. So now they're gonna get after the quarterback, make Millwall uncomfortable, and he
Uh-huh.
only trusts one wide receiver. As what it showed. I mean, maybe he does trust all his receivers,
I
but
feel like Bernard.
I
everyone got
think.
underutilized in my opinion.
I think he definitely at times in the season got underutilized, but I don't think there's no questions asked. Jeremy is a certified wide receiver too on this team. I mean, he was the lead.
Easy,
He led the team in
easy.
receptions and yards in the Iron Bowl. He led the team in receptions and yards and a few other games scattered out throughout the year. So I don't think it's. I think the wide receiver one and wide receiver two of the team is solidified. I don't think there's any questions about it. Ryan Williams
So
is your go-to. Jeremy
so
is
when I
number
so
two.
when I say a wide receiver too, I understand it has to be technically on the stat sheet somebody who was second in targets and yards and all of that. So they had a wide receiver too. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is when you break up a team like Ohio State, you can't defend them because you have a Buka who's just like is a wide receiver one on every other team. And then you have the backs that are getting utilized. And what I'm saying is with Alabama, it was a little bit easier to defend when you knew the running game was just Millwall. And
Okay.
the main
I,
target was just one guy. Ohio
Yeah.
State used Abuka just as much as Jeremiah Smith. You see what I'm
we
saying? So
we
it's hard to contain.
Well, if you're saying that they just
Or
need
a
to
team like
use,
Oregon.
they need to use the guys more, then I think me and Eli 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
It's
I'm right there
kind of
with
like
you.
you said, they didn't have a guy who they trusted to be the wide receiver too. So they didn't have a guy
I'm
who could
saying that
fulfill
they
that
didn't
role.
utilize that guy enough, and so I'm trying to figure out what reason that was for that, outside of not trusting him.
Well, I think part of that too kind of fell on Milroe. I think sometimes Milroe was
Fact.
so keyed in on his first read
So he
that he
didn't
really
trust
wasn't
him.
looking at anybody else.
So he didn't trust his wide receiver too. Then
It was definitely moments throughout the season where Miro definitely focused on Ryan Williams too much. But I feel like you could even see Bernard was getting separation a lot of times. He was making plays and he was putting himself in position to make plays. Sometimes Miro would just be a little bit off, or maybe the line didn't give Miro enough time to get the ball to him. But I definitely think Bernard has the skill set and the talent and all the abilities to be a great wide receiver too.
Yeah, and in my opinion, he already is. I mean, you can even go back to the most recent game a week or two ago against Michigan, and there were at least 5 different plays where he was breaking wide open, but Milroe just didn't see him. So, and there were times against Wisconsin, there were times against Georgia. He had touchdowns. He was reliable. Auburn, multiple games this year where Bernard was out there being he's consistent. All right, that shouldn't be a question. Jeremy Bernard is consistent. It's just a matter of, is the scheming consistent? That's what I want to see. I think it goes back. I think it stems to the coordinators, and it also stems back to who you have at quarterback, right? Because you not only want a quarterback that is athletic and can do all the things, and Milroe showed glimpses of that at times, but you also want somebody who's willing to sit in that pocket for an extra second or two in order to allow a guy like Bernard to break free like he did in that Michigan game, and you take that extra second to deliver the football to him. So I feel like that was the one thing that was really missing, that, that Alabama's offense, that kind of put a floor on Alabama's offense.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama in their history, they've shared the ball. At one time, Alabama had the best wide receiver room in the country.
Name that room though.
Where they had Judy, Waddle, Henry Ruggs, and Devontae Smith. And now Bama don't have that room no more.
Okay.
Of course, but if you want to compare this current Alabama wide receiver room to Ohio State, they haven't shown to be on that level. So
right, and I'm not saying that they have to be that. I'm not saying that. But like I said, I'm not saying Bernard is not capable. I'm just saying that they didn't give it to him. So and that could be a combination of Milroe not seeing them and outside things.
I feel like you guys are right. The skills positions probably expressed some frustration throughout the season just because they weren't able to have their best season.
I do feel like Bernard's capable. I don't want to get that misunderstood.
Yeah, that's what you made it sound. It made it sound like Bernard when able to.
No, I'm just saying he didn't get targeted enough, and I'm just trying to figure out why. And y'all laid it out. It's multitude of reasons. Milroe maybe not seeing them sometimes, or whatever the case may be. Maybe the coordinators, it's different layers to it. I'm not saying that he wasn't capable. That's not what I meant by that. But at the end of the day, too, if like I said, the running game, if you're not using your backs, it's obviously you are the easier to defend.
Oh, it's a rundown.